The goal is not constant compliments, male approval, being the hottest person in the room. The goal is being the same woman and feeling the same inside, regardless of who's looking at you or not. Confidence has to come from your internal embodiment, right? I want to feel grounded in my body, in my power, in my sexiness, in my magnetism. That's what power is at the end of the day. Hello, and welcome back to the EmpowerHER Podcast. Today, I want to talk about something that is often a taboo topic, something that I've sort of touched on here and there, but never in like a full-blown episode. And yeah, it's a little bit taboo, but it's something I've been thinking a lot about lately and something that I want to bring to the forefront because maybe I'm not the only one who's feeling this way or thinking about this. And this came to me recently. So I, as most of you maybe know, or maybe you don't, I live in Hungary. I live in Budapest, Hungary, which is like Central or Eastern Europe, depending on how we look at it. And I grew up in the States. And I was just visiting Miami because that's where my mom lives. And we had some girl time with my mom and my sister. And my body has changed a lot over the last 10 years of living here. I've gone through my own health challenges, my own challenges with food, my body image. I've talked about it on a previous episode. I live in the largest body I've ever lived in currently, and I've worked really hard to get to a place where I feel happy and comfortable with who I am. But when I was in Miami this time, I didn't dress exceptionally, sexy. I used to dress very sexy. I would literally have everything hanging out, which when I'm like 18, 20, that's totally fine. It's just not my vibe anymore, regardless of what my body looks like. But, in Miami, the weather's nicer typically. And so you can get away with wearing less clothing. And when I was there, I got so many compliments, stares. I felt the energy was different than it is in Hungary, which is really interesting. I got compliments from women saying you're so beautiful, which I think is way better to get than from men. And I didn't do anything different when I was in Miami versus in Hungary. Obviously, it's a winter time. So in Hungary, the last 6 months, I haven't worn clothes that really show anything because it's freezing. And in Miami, although it was cold in Miami, I obviously wore less clothing, but makeup was the same, hair was the same. I didn't do anything different than I normally do to those things. I wasn't dressing sexier. Didn't suddenly lose 30 pounds. Like I wasn't trying harder. In fact, probably the opposite. And I just came to this realization that in Hungary, I'm no longer the beauty standard. And that messed with me a little bit, I have to admit. Not in like a self-deprecating kind of way. It was just interesting to notice this because I felt like I haven't been noticed in Hungary in a while. And not that I want to be. And I've talked about before how during COVID, I purposely shut this side off of me and I energetically stepped back and I didn't want people looking at me. And I was going through my own spiritual awakening and all of that. So to some extent, it was me shutting it off. But I've just noticed that I'm not the beauty standard here anymore. And I don't say this fishing for compliments to get attention. And I am fully aware that I am a societal, like how society looks at me, privileged, white, decent looking. So it's not about that. And I definitely don't want to say that I'm ugly or whatever. It's just in terms of the beauty standard of what Hungary has and what a lot of Europe has. I am no longer the beauty standard. I'm not a thin, young blonde anymore, which I used to be. And I used to be the standard. And I want to talk more about what happens to your nervous system when you feel seen and when you don't, and in this context. So, what it feels like really is I didn't change, but the rooms I started going into changed. And we act as if beauty's objective culturally, but it's not. It's contextual. And in one place you could go and thin is prized and sharp features are ideal or minimal curves are what people care about. And in another, curves are celebrated, intense glam and makeup is normal, your presence is louder. I remember this was like one of the first times I realized kind of the difference in the beauty standards is I was living in Hungary, but not for very long. And I came back to the States just for vacation. And I was in San Diego where I grew up, and I was hanging out with some of my friends. And I had probably gained a little bit of weight since I had last seen them. And I remember one of my male friends who he and I just have a platonic relationship, always have. We've known each other since we were teenagers. He was like, oh, I see. He made a comment about like, oh, like your thighs look thicker. Like, I think this looks so much better on you. And I was like, what? Like somebody told me that I gained weight and it looks better on me. I was shocked because in Hungary, from my friends, my family, like everyone, all I ever heard was like being as skinny as possible, having as small of a butt as possible, like no curves, like that was just the ideal. So it was so weird for me to hear that from someone else saying like, oh no, you look better now. I was like, in my like 20, I don't even know how old I was, 23-year-old brain, I was like, I don't know how to compute this information because I'm getting different information from different people, and this feels strange, and I don't know what to do with this. And so we internalize the cultural preference as a personal failure, right? When I gained weight here in Hungary, I was like, oh, I'm failing because everyone expects me and tells me that I should be skinny and that I should be thin. I felt like something was wrong with me. And I've talked about this. I went through my own journey with my body image, how I hated how I looked, even when I was skinny. I didn't think I was skinny then. Now looking back, I'm like, wow, I actually was. And I literally didn't think that back then. It's not even that like the aesthetic shifted. It's not even that the standard shifted. It's just you are different and the rooms are different. And then we have the algorithm and then we have the cultural aspect, filters, Facetune, Ozempic. Like things are changing so quickly that it's like, you end up, even if you look the same, you end up being treated or looked at differently in different rooms. And I think this is where the self-love comes into play of like, regardless of what goes on, we have to feel that internal self-love because otherwise we're going to constantly feel like we're not living up to these standards and our nervous system is going to be constantly dysregulated as a result. And I've talked about this too, is like during COVID, as I mentioned, I had a really hard time, right? Before COVID, I was probably the most stereotypical beauty standard version of myself. I was skinny. I had pretty blonde hair. I, wore a lot of makeup, wore heels, dresses to work every day. Like that was my life. And I noticed everyone would look at me. And I don't say this in a way of like, I think I'm so amazing and I'm conceited. I noticed the male attention. It was constant. And I liked it and I wanted it, if I'm being honest. And when COVID hit, we suddenly went from in office, we were 4 days a week in office, one home day. We suddenly went from 4 days a week in office to 5 days a week at home from one day to the next. I was living alone. We were completely shut down for 2 months. What did I do? I just baked and I ate, and we couldn't really hang out with friends, go outside, didn't really wear makeup, didn't really do any of those things. We couldn't go to the gym. It was closed, all these things. And yeah, I after COVID or after those few months of quarantine that we had going into summer, I came out of quarantine, quote unquote quarantine, like the way our country had it. I felt very uncomfortable being around people. I felt like my body had changed. And then as the years came, I developed thyroid issues. I think I've always had insulin resistance, but I finally went to the doctor last year and realized I had massive social anxiety. My body fluctuated, probably a mix of the lifestyle change, but also the stress we were going under. I mean, COVID was such a stressful time for everybody. My libido was gone. I didn't want to be seen. I literally didn't want to be seen. And I've talked about this before, how like after COVID, I literally just like, it's almost like I put up a curtain over me so that people wouldn't see me, like an energetic curtain. And I really was like, don't look at me to people. Like, that's really how I felt, is like, I don't want anyone to stare at me. I remember I would leave my apartment and I have a like a pub by my apartment where I live. It's totally normal. It's nothing like crazy or rowdy. You have to walk past it to go to the metro, to basically go anywhere. And I remember when I was first like coming out of COVID and I would like have to leave my house because I was going somewhere and I'd have to go walk to the metro. I walked by this pub and there was like people standing outside, it's like a chill place. I would feel physically uncomfortable and I would dread walking by because I'm like, oh my God, they're staring at me. I would dread it. Versus before, a few months earlier, I was in the office strutting around in heels in a dress and I couldn't wait for people to look at me. It was such a shift. It was such a shift. And when you feel that dysregulation, the exhaustion, the depletion, you shrink. Your posture changes, your eye contact changes, your magnetism changes. And you're basically, your nervous system is like, I don't feel safe being seen and I don't want to be seen. And, COVID was 6 years ago, or at least when it started. I've worked a lot on myself since then. I have truly done a 180 and now I feel strong. I, go to the gym regularly. My energy's back. My libido's back. Like I've done all the things, both internally, externally, worked with doctors, all the things to make me feel good and my confidence feel good. And I realized that I'm starting to get noticed again. And it's not because I'm trying to get noticed. It's because I'm no longer hiding, because my nervous system is saying, oh, I feel safe now to be seen again. And it's not that I want the attention from males. Like, I think if you listen to my podcast, you know that I'm like very much not male-centered anymore. I used to be. I'm not male-centered and I really don't care. But I wanted to feel alive again. I wanted to feel free. I sort of felt like I was caged into my body and that wasn't great. And the thing at the end of the day is like, I'm married. I love my husband. I'm not looking for anything outside of my relationship, but it still feels good to feel magnetic, and not even from men, from women. And especially when I'm talking about my work, right? Like I'm doing my podcast right now. I do videos for social media. Like the magnetism is about me being magnetic on screen, with people, with my clients that I work with. It's not even about male attention. It's about me wanting to feel magnetic in everything that I'm doing so that I can have great things in life, whether it's more money, more clients, more opportunities, not the male gaze necessarily. At the end of the day, there's a difference between craving validation and enjoying vitality, right? Between performance and presence. I talk a lot about feminism, although I will say I'm probably more of a misandrist than a feminist. Feminism isn't pretending that you don't like being attractive or magnetic, I'll say, because I think that's a more neutral way to say it. It's about not outsourcing your worth to it. And that's the difference. And I really shut that part of myself down for years because I felt safer, it felt easier, and it felt less complicated to not be seen, to not be magnetic. And this showed up in all aspects. Not only was I not getting male attention, but I also wasn't getting clients and I wasn't doing the things that I wanted to in my life. I really had to work on myself to do that. And once I started doing it, yes, I noticed it more because it's so obvious in the day-to-day when I'm outside with attention. But I also notice it in my work. I notice it in how I'm feeling. I notice it with my friends. Like there's a big difference in that magnetism and feeling that. And again, the goal is not constant compliments, male approval, being the hottest person in the room. That's not what I'm talking about here by sort of helping your nervous system regulate. The goal is being the same woman and feeling the same inside, regardless of who's looking at you or not. Because at the end of the day, if your confidence relies on attention from men or women, it's fragile. Confidence has to come from your internal embodiment, right? Because regardless if I walk on that street or not, and especially being in Hungary, I'm no longer the beauty standard. It doesn't trip me up that people don't look at me and stare at me anymore. I still feel the confidence inside because I've worked on feeling that way, because I've made my nervous system feel safe. I've regulated myself. The thing is like, if I only felt beautiful like in Miami because it mirrored me and it would get that male attention, that would be unstable, because then as soon as I'm back in Hungary or anywhere else, I'm not getting that validation. And so then I'm not feeling good about myself. So I want to feel grounded in my body, in my power, in my sexiness, in my magnetism, regardless of the location. And that's what power is at the end of the day. And you can enjoy being attractive. Like, I think that is a beautiful thing, right? And you can enjoy it and love it, but you don't need it to define you. And that's the difference. You can be desired without being dependent on being desired. And, so many women I know go through this where they stop feeling safe in their bodies, their libido shuts down, they feel disconnected from their sensuality, they've gained or lost weight, confidence has changed, they started hiding whether or not their body changes, they had a baby, like whatever those situations are, I think most women can empathize and understand that we've gone through so many cycles, especially when you're in your 30s or your 40s, like you've gone through so many different cycles and changes. And we've had situations where we don't get the results we want, whether it's with attraction to others or relationships or our business. And then we blame ourselves. And then your body responds to stress. Your nervous system feels pressure. So we want to shift the energy from, am I getting this attention and can that validate me, to, can I give myself validation? Can I self-validate? Can I regulate my nervous system so that regardless of what the external world is saying to me, I feel good about my internal world? And instead of asking, like, you can ask yourself just to see, like, do I feel safe being seen, right? Because sometimes the answer is no. And then we're wondering why those things aren't happening to us. So just really understanding that it's about internal validation rather than external validation, and really working on how you can feel powerful in your own self without needing that constant external attention. And then when you feel internally great, you're going to get the right attention anyways. You'll get the business deals, you'll get the clients, you'll get the job offers, whatever it is that you want. And again, the goal is not to be the beauty standard. That's exactly what I learned. It's like, while I'm no longer the beauty standard, I'm still magnetic, but magnetic in a way that I want to be magnetic, not in a way of, I want people to see me as this thin, beautiful, blonde person that I used to be. That's no longer what I'm looking for. And even if I was looking for a partner, let's say, the right person would find me. And that's the same way with my husband. Like, he met me post-COVID. He didn't meet me at my 22-year-old skinny blonde era. That's not how he met me. But I still was able to find a person that loves me for me and my magnetism, because that's what he was attracted to at the end of the day. So it's really about understanding, do you feel something negative being seen? If so, can we understand why? And can we work on trying to figure out how we can connect that to you feeling more empowered, how we can connect that to you having a more regulated nervous system so that you can get all of the things that you want in life and be super happy and excited about it without needing that external validation. I hope this episode gave you something to think about, something interesting, a little bit of a different topic, but these are things that I think about often and that really, really impact my day-to-day. And I know a lot of the people I work with so many women, all of theirs. So something I felt was super important for us to talk about. If you love the episode, I really appreciate a 5-star review or subscribe on YouTube, wherever you're listening or watching. I hope you all have an amazing, amazing week, and I'll catch you in the next episode.